So there we go. Just waiting for the recording to launch. Okay, as of now, we are being recorded. So welcome once more to Covenant of Mayors live webinar on the main aspects of the program and the calls that are the most relevant to you as signatories. I will quickly go over some over our agenda and some suggestions on how to best interact throughout this webinar. As you already saw today, we will be with CINEA when it comes to the main aspects of LIFE program and the key novelties that were introduced. Then we will continue with Ms. Laura Giapichelli from CINEA when it comes to climate change adaptation and mitigation SAP program and the relevant calls under that sub-program, and continue on clean energy transition with Ms. Talia Brun-Marsen and with Mr. Michele Sansoni, all projects advisors from CINEA. Then we will be joined by Alda that will present the Life Metro Adapt project, the project of City of Milan and its consortium. And we will proceed to questions and answers session in the end that will last for 20 minutes. Now, when it comes to interaction, we will be using Slido for questions. So here you can find the code to access the pool of questions. Do not worry, we will drop also this message in the chat box, so you will always have access to this code. Questions are open from the beginning of a webinar, but they will be addressed in the questions and answers session. So yes, if you have any technical issues or questions of technical nature, feel free to drop them in the chat. But for the questions regarding webinar, please do use Slido because we will prioritize questions shared there, because you can also upvote the existing ones so we can see which one are the most relevant to you as to most of you. And of course, I would kindly ask you to keep your mics off so we can hear the presenters well. And thank you once more for joining. I think we can slowly start now. I will hand over to Ms. Laura Giapichelli from CINEA. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Angela. Thanks all the organizers of the Covenant of Mayors. This is a really important event because we will focus on the call 2021 on the new LIFE program. I'm here with my colleagues, with Michele Sansoni and Talia Brun-Marsen, as it was mentioned by Angela. We will guide you through this new call. It's also a new start for us. We will first give you an introduction on the LIFE program, and then I will focus on the part related to climate change, adaptation and mitigation. And the third part of the presentation will be led by Talia and Michele and will be focused on the new pillar of LIFE, which is about clean energy transition. So this is the structure of the presentation. I will now share the slides. Voila. Here you can see the first slide, just to say that LIFE has moved to the European Climate, Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency, CINEA. This agency has been funded by the European Commission in April this year, so it's a very new, brand new agency. And I think that the LIFE program really finds a home there because it's the agency that has been mandated to implement the European Green Deal. So LIFE is part of one of the program instrumental for this target of the European Commission. But let's get started and let's go to the call 2021. First of all, let's go back in time. I would like to spend a couple of words on the LIFE program, since it is one of the oldest program of the European Commission. It was launched in 1992. I think I hear some noise from the thank you very much. So just to say that it's important to know that LIFE, it's a very old program, not because just of the age of LIFE, it's almost 30 years old, but because it's one of the most important program of the European Union dedicated only to environment and climate change. It was launched in 1992. This year sees also international agreements on the United Nations side, but also at European level, we have the launch of the key directives on environment, Nature and Birds Directive. And at the same year, the European Union steps forward, so not just signing agreements, but also puts forward a fund. This is LIFE, l'Instrument Financier pour l'Environnement. With LIFE, we have funded more than 5,000 projects so far, and you can find the memory of these projects and the best practice, the results of these projects on the ground. But also you can see the information about these projects on the LIFE database. So everything is available for you. We will share these slides, so you will have also the links to this database. So now let's move on in time and let's come to 2021. 2021, it's also a key year for LIFE because we start a new programming period. As for all the European program, we have 7 years and this new one starts this year, 2021-2027. A very good news for LIFE, we have an increase of budget compared to previous 7 years, previous programming period. So now we have 5.4 billion euro allocated for LIFE, 2 billion more, as I said, 1 million goes specifically to projects on biodiversity and nature, and 1 million goes to the program, or comes actually from Horizon 2020, and it's dedicated to clean energy transition program, sub-program. Again, LIFE still keeps the nature of its main value. So it's the only EU program dedicated exclusively on nature, environment, and climate action. And it is, as I mentioned, a key instrument of the Green Deal. But now let's see how does it look like, the new structure. The new structure of LIFE, it's based on 4 pillars. You see the pillars on the middle of the slide. First pillar, nature and biodiversity. Second pillar, circular economy and quality of life. This is the new, let's say, pillar related to environment, so related to waste management, transport, air pollution, noise, and other environmental issues. Third pillar, climate mitigation and adaptation. And fourth pillar, clean energy transition. We will focus on these 2 last pillars today, first with me on climate and then with my colleagues on clean energy transition. Here you see the objectives also of the LIFE program. It is the main objective to help the shift of our economy to be more climate resilient, more energy efficient, more apt to protect and improve the quality of the environment and halt the biodiversity loss. We have a wide range of activities. We move from projects that work on behavioral changes, so more awareness raising. We have also very concrete projects on the ground. We have projects working on enforcement of policies. We have also projects working on, for instance, removing market barriers on energy efficiency in buildings. So it's a very wide range of actions that you can put forward in your projects. We will see them in a minute. let's now see the climate action projects, climate action sub-program. This sub-program is based on the implementation of the European climate policy framework, both on mitigation, so the objective is to contribute to the targets of emission reduction within Europe, the 2030 target and 2050. And on climate adaptation, we would like to contribute through the LIFE projects to the implementation of the new EU adaptation strategy that has been published this year for all the European Union. For clean energy transition, we focus instead really on energy. These are the priorities that have been identified. For example, attracting private finance, for example, engaging and empowering consumers, and they are declined, we will see afterwards, in several call for proposals. Very specific and very prescriptive to the main priorities. Are the eligible entities? So who can participate to LIFE? This is very important to know. Of course, you can participate if you are public administration, if you are a private body, if you are an NGO association, you are welcome to participate. You need to be based legally in the EU member states, one of the EU member states. There are some exceptions. You can also be part of non-EU member states if you are part of the European Economic Area, for example, Iceland, or if you are in a country signing the association agreements with the EU. Most important is that the coordinator, so the one who will lead the project, the entity who will lead the project, has to be legally established within the eligible country. The actions has to be developed in Europe, in the European Union, but there are some exceptions, depending, of course, on the nature of the project. Types of activities. So let's see also some novelties here. We first of all change a bit the acronyms, but the substance is still the same. So standard action projects means what we call so far traditional projects, the most common LIFE projects. This applies to, for instance, the sub-program climate change mitigation and adaptation. I have added here also the co-funding rate. So means that we give, if your project is selected under this call for proposal, climate mitigation adaptation, we cover 60% of the budget with EU funding. The rest, though the 40%, should come overall from your side, from the consortium or from one entity, in case you don't have a consortium. I focus now on the other highlighted point. We have coordination and support actions, and they receive 95% of co-funding rate. Coordination and support action is so CSA is the type of projects funded under Clean Energy Transition sub-program. You see the co-funding rate, 95%, very high, because it's linked to the fact that these calls are very prescriptive and very specific. So this will be explained also by my colleagues. Operating grants are grants for NGOs, for the operational work of NGOs. And I will not focus on the other type of activities because today, as we said, we will go really in depth more in climate action and clean energy transition. So climate action, LIFE 2021, another, again, we just clarify standard action projects. These are projects that contribute to, for example, to develop new methodology, to apply this new methodology, but you can also use already practices that are considered the best on the market or the best existing, and you can develop a project around them. You can also propose projects that are more linked to enforce a policy, enforce a regulation in your city, for example, or projects that would like to raise awareness or improve the governance, for instance, of your administration. So there are, as I mentioned, different types of possibilities for you. It's a very wide. One novelty is just that we had to add maximum duration. Before we didn't have. So maximum duration of a project is 10 years, so it's still quite important as a duration. Projects can be written in European languages, but there are some parts that are compulsory in English, kind of the project summary, for example. For standard action projects, one additional element is that there is no obligation to create a consortium, so you can come as one entity. But if you need and if you want to create a consortium, that's because it's important or it's useful for the project, this is also possible. And it might get additional point if it fits some indication that are in the evaluation guidelines on transnationality. The call structure. Another novelty is that the call is now, so the live call is now in the funding and tender portal of the European Union, where we have all the, or most of the call for proposals of the European Union. Until last year, live was on the e-proposal platform. So we moved from e-proposal and we are now under the tender and funding and tender portal of the European Union. There you just type live and you will see a list of calls. Then you need to identify which call is the best for your project. For climate mitigation, adaptation and governance and information, you have these, as you can see in the slide, these acronyms. SAP means Standard Action Projects, CLIMA, CCM, so climate change mitigation. You see also that a submission model is single stage, means that we require this year you to submit already a full proposal. So a complete proposal with all the work packages, the budget, and you will have also to introduce some key performance indicators. The deadline for this call for proposal is 30th of November 2021. Let's go now into the call. So climate change mitigation is one topic. It's called topic of this call on climate change. Mitigation meaning that we are looking into reducing emissions, reducing greenhouse gas emissions that comes from different sectors. Here you have a list of possible sectors you can work on. For example, on transport in your cities, or fluorinated gases, which are the gases coming from air conditioning. So there are several types of options that you can maybe fit in with your projects under climate change mitigation. Here you see the legal and policy background is the target of 2030 for the European Union to reduce emissions of 55% compared to 1990s. So we have also some scopes. Scopes means that these are, let's say, priority areas. If your project fits one of these priority area, one of these scope, it might get additional point. Of course, we will assess to what extent it will fit this scope. If your project does not fit one of these scope, it's still eligible. Of course, it will not get, let's say, additional point because it does not fit the scope, but it's not excluded. You see several scopes they cover basically all the sectors that I mentioned in the previous slides. For example, point number 2 is more focused on energy intensive industries. So for instance, cement, steel companies, but we can also see energy efficiency in point number 3 or land management in point number 4. Climate change adaptation. This part of the call, I would say it's really related to the Covenant of Mayors. We have, even in the call document, we have specifically mentioned Covenant of Mayors. As you see, point number 3, it's actually text that comes from the call. So any project that is linked to the Covenant of Mayors, that is coming from the signatories of the Covenant of Mayors, will be looked with a lot of interest, of course, according to the evaluation criteria, but we look for projects coming within this framework of the Covenant of Mayors. The policy background is, as I mentioned, the adaptation strategy. The scopes, so let's say the priority of these climate change adaptation call are 9, the one that you see in this slide. I just would like to draw your attention on priority number or scope number 4, adapting cities and regions to climate change. Here specifically we look for cities or municipalities like yours, for example, to come forward with projects on adaptation to climate change. We have also cities that have applied in the past, for instance, with nature-based solutions. I will send you in the chat afterwards some names of projects that you can maybe have a look to see what we have funded so far. Nature-based solutions, for instance, I have in mind Life Tree Check, looking really to implement nature-based solutions in different cities in the Eastern Europe. We have also climate proofing infrastructure and buildings. This is also very relevant to cities. We have, for instance, projects that have been looking to the heat island effect that it's very common in many cities. I have in mind a project which is called Life Hero Tile. I will write down after my presentation. But you have also projects working, for instance, on financial instruments or water management. For example, this is one project in the Netherlands, Life Airfit. Sorry, I hear, thank you. Life Airfit looks to the problem common again to many cities of heavy rains and the problems of how to manage the infiltration, how to manage the floods. So this is a system developed by the project. You can find also more information on the website. It really involved many municipalities and the private sector. Last part of my presentation, climate governance and information. Here we look both to mitigation and adaptation, but from a different angle. We look to the governance part. We look to the changes of behaviors, awareness raising activities. So here what it changes is the type of activities and also the budget allocated for this topic. For this topic, we have about 8 million euro, whereas for the other two topics, mitigation and adaptation, we have for this call about 30 million euro each. So as you can see, under this topic, we will have few projects funded. What is important here, it's also in bold, we look, let's say, to more soft actions because it's more awareness raising, it's monitoring development of legislation, but we would like to see also some concrete actions, some pilot actions during the duration of the project. So not just development of tools, not just development of studies, but also their implementation within the duration of the project. 10 scopes, 10 possibilities, let's say, to if your project fits in. As I mentioned, may get additional points in the evaluation. I will not go through all of them. As you see, there is a wide range of actions on behavioral changes, awareness raising, assessment and functioning of EU emission trading system, fluorinated gases, climate policy monitoring. I would like now to move the presentation to the next part. So I come and I call in my colleagues, Talia and Michele. They will guide you through the clean energy transition part, and then I will be back for the question and answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Laura. So good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining this morning. I'm gonna try to present very briefly the specificities of one of the sub-programs that Laura presented, the Clean Energy Transition Program. First of all, let me see if I manage to move these slides. Let's solve the technical issues first. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Let's see. All right. Okay. Now it seems to work. Perfect. So hold on a sec. Previous. Right. Okay. So as I said, the clean energy transition sub-program is the new element of one of the new elements of this new life program. As you see on the slide, its main objective is basically to enable actions for energy efficiency and renewable energy policy. Um, Basically, the purpose of the program is to accelerate the energy transition, and it will do so by supporting different sorts of actions. So it will support, for instance, facilitating policy implementation. It will also support actions that mobilize large-scale investments into sustainable energy projects. It will support building capacity and kind of empowering consumers. So as you see from what I'm saying, basically this is a sub-program that will very much focus on the non-technological aspects of the clean energy transition. And this probably for some of you would basically ring a bell, because it's not, of course, not the first time that European programs support this type of actions. I mean, what is there now in the Clean Energy Transition Program very much builds on Intelligent Energy Europe and the results of that program, and more recently on the results of Horizon 2020, its energy efficiency leg, which funded basically more than 380 projects in this field. The Clean Energy Transition Program now will have, as Laura mentioned, 1 billion for the coming 7 years, and it's structured into 5 intervention areas, with which then are kind of, there's an architecture of topics under each of the intervention areas that is very detailed, and it's a bit of a different animal in the life program, because it's very prescriptive into what we regarding what we expect from projects. Projects, as Laura already mentioned, will be considered under life coordination and support actions, and yeah, and so they will get a specific co-funding rate of 95%. This year, the budget for 2021, it will be 94.5 millions, and that budget will go into 18 topics, and we expect to fund this year between 60 and 65 projects. The call deadline is the 12th of January, so it's different from the climate action program. So just note this difference. One is in November and the other one is in January. And so you would apply by January, and we would expect your projects to start around autumn 2022. So from the moment that you submit your proposal, there's 9 months to your grant starting, basically. Something also a bit specific about the Clean Energy Transition Program projects is that in general, they require 3 participants at least from 3 different countries. That's true for most topics, but just check very well your specific context, because there are some exceptions. So this year there are 3 exceptions: PDA, build up skills, and home renovation, for which single country projects are eligible. And the typical budget range of the projects under the Clean Energy Transition sub-program is between 1 and 2 million. But of course, this is not prescriptive. So you just need to make sure that whatever you propose is commensurate with the budget you're requesting. So it's just to give you an orientation. Now let's go into the intervention areas that are published in the multi-annual work program, and under which it will give you basically that architecture of the intervention areas will give you an idea of what will be funded this year, but also what will be funded in the future, because every year there will be an annual call, and under each of those intervention areas, 3 or 4 topics will kind of come. So I will just briefly go through them. So here you have them. The first one is building a national and regional and local policy framework supporting the clean energy transition. So here, under these intervention area, there will be topics that basically develop capacity building for local and regional authorities, or support member states in the implementation of EU legislation, for instance. The second intervention area is supporting the development of local and regional projects, and here you would have basically topics that involve technical assistance, home renovation. You would also have here topics that focus on a specific region in transition, or a specific set of regions that have particular challenges. The third area of intervention is attracting private financing for sustainable energy, and the title is quite self-explanatory basically, but here we would want to channel private investment into sustainable energy, and also develop innovative financing schemes in Europe, basically. And the next one is the kind of the intervention area that is the most consumer centric, perhaps. And here, under involving and empowering citizens, we would have topics that for instance, focus on mitigating energy poverty, or focus on developing energy communities, or those sort of topics. The last intervention area, which focuses on the technology rollout, digitalization, new markets, services, business models, etc. This one, we will not cover it very much today, because we will be presented only selected topics. We will be presenting only selected topics of these intervention areas. But here, if you read basically the call, you will find topics that focus on construction skills, on smart services, heating and cooling, digitalizations, those sort of topics. So from these intervention areas today, the ones that have a red square around, we will just touch upon a few of the topics that are under each intervention areas that we think are particularly relevant for local authorities. And we will cover them very briefly, but we invite you to then, if you're interested in the kind of the generic topic that we will present, Michele and myself, then that you go and read the topic text and go to the info day recordings and get more details on those. So let's start now. Okay. So the first topic that I would like to present today is the topic on energy poverty. And this topic basically this year will focus on improving the energy efficiency of buildings. As you know, the low energy efficiency of buildings is one of the reasons, one of the risk factors for energy poverty, together with low income and very high energy expenditure. So along with mitigating energy poverty, this topic intends to also kind of help mitigate some of the other negative impacts of living in low quality housing, like health impacts or increased risk of social exclusion. So here, as I said, this year, this focuses really on the hard measures to tackle energy poverty, so building-related interventions, and it will really support the uptake of renovation approaches, which means that basically this year, the topic will look for actions that improve the energy efficiency of buildings, particularly in vulnerable districts, you could focus your project could focus on a district or on a cluster of buildings or on just a group of buildings that have a common management structure, so that whatever you propose is sort of doable in the time frame of the project. The solutions that you propose under this topic should include proven measures for deep renovation, and this can be basically energy efficient building envelopes, replacing the windows, etc. And you really need to take into account from the start of the project occupant behavior and also their buying, because we've seen that those two, if they are not considered from early stages, can really affect the efficiency of this kind of projects. The ownership structure of the buildings that you would be targeting can be very different. So you could have buildings that are privately rented from the privately rented sector. You could have owner-occupied housing or also social housing. So you are quite free there. And regarding the financing mechanism that you will use to fund those interventions, you could use kind of traditional public financing for projects, or you can also use blended financing options. The kinds of activities that we expect to see in projects are either the rollout of holistic industrialized deep renovation solutions. I will give you an example of one of those in my next slides, or together, actually, you can also combine the development and implementation of roadmaps of energy efficiency measures. And these roadmaps can be focused either on social housing or on other types of housing in your city. And but it's of course by the end of the project, it is not enough that you have developed a roadmap, because that would be too easy somehow. Although I'm not saying that developing good roadmaps it's an easy task. What we would expect you to be able to do by the end of the project, beyond developing the roadmap, is that you have kind of put in place the framework for the implementation of that roadmap, that you have secured some of the financing necessary, and that you have the commitment and buying from relevant actors to implement it. The estimated project size is 1.75 million, but as I said, this is really not prescriptive. So let me just give you an example of this first type of project. So the rollout of holistic renovation models. This is a project that has already finished, that with which some of you may be familiar already. It's called Transition Zero, and it really built on a Dutch concept, existing concept of Energiesprong. That is a very kind of well-known project. And in this project, basically, they exported this Dutch model into France and the UK. And the idea of Energiesprong was really to kind of mass produce refurbishments for social housing. So they developed standardized, affordable housing retrofits, and they implemented them in housing with minimal disturbance for occupants. And basically those kind of prefabricated modules that they were installing included very good basically insulation, but also new windows, and the solution also involved PV and basically heat pumps. So it was really an integral renovation of each of the houses, reducing very much the energy needs. Under this project, basically, they managed to refurbish 3,750 homes, but that's not the most important impact they had, because basically what they managed to do was really to innovate, to put some new business model in the construction sector and in the sector for the procurement of refurbishments in social housing. So there was like process innovation that accompanied those kind of more physical impacts that the project had. Let me then move on to the topic on energy communities. That's the second topic on citizens that I would like to present. And this topic basically comes from the logic that basically energy communities can be a tool to basically increase the investment in renewable energy and energy efficiency, but they can also deliver other impacts like social cohesion. Some of the energy communities we've seen are really working on energy poverty alleviation. They also improve the local acceptance of energy projects, so they can be a tool to achieve a number of objectives, and that's why many local authorities are interested in those. And this we've seen from the past that really efforts of local authorities to promote energy communities are really efficient. So the best project that we've seen of energy community promotions have been led by local and regional authorities, and that's why this topic this year will focus really on that collaboration, on making sure that local and regional authorities collaborate with this kind of energy community initiatives. Just let me go back one slide. So the level of involvement that we expect from local and regional authorities in this kind of collaboration varies. So it depending on the context, we expect to see some very proactive approaches in which the local or regional authority really takes part directly in the setup of the municipal energy initiative or the energy community, and is part of the hybrid kind of collective ownership scheme that comes out of that. So that would be really a very proactive engagement from the local authority, or other types of approaches that could be, for instance, just putting some of the public resources to support energy community creation. And this could be basically the local authority, for instance, providing guarantees, providing seed funding, providing legal support, providing technical support. So basically putting those resources to help energy community creation. Most of the actions that will be developed under this topic, we also expect them to really contribute to create a supportive local policy framework for energy communities, basically. And most of the actions we expect will involve some element of training and capacity building for energy communities, and also some element of promotion of energy communities towards citizens, so the participation of citizens in energy communities. Before I finish, I wanted to also mention that under this topic, there is a special scope for a very kind of precise type of service that local authorities could develop, and those would be integrated services. Those services would be kind of an all-encompassing service, basically reducing the complexity of setting up an energy community and also launching a project with that energy community. They can be designed in many ways, but what is special about this type of integrated services is that in this case, it could be also a private actor implementing that services, provided that you as local authority or as regional authority support that private provider or that private entity. And a last point that is relevant for this topic would be that it is open to any area of sustainable energy. So the classic kind of image that comes to mind when you think energy communities is energy communities devoted to renewable energy generation. But here we could also support projects that look into citizen-led renovation, district heating, or e-mobility, for instance. As an example, and that would be my last slide, would be this project. This is a project that is it's ongoing. It started recently. It's called Scale, and this is a project where basically the consortium will create a set of tools and resources, coaching techniques to support the setup of energy communities. And what is interesting here is that, as I said, they will focus on many areas, so building, renovation, district heating, collective self-consumption, and that they have very ambitious targets in terms of energy community creation. So by the end of the project, they intend to create 25 plus 34 energy communities. So high ambitions. And with that, I will pass the floor to my colleague Michele, which will present some other relevant topics for local authorities.
Thank you, Talia. Good morning, everyone. So I think I need to press control.
Just a second while we switch. Perfect. It's working now. Excellent.
Yeah. So This topic is called CET local, and as you can see also for the acronym, it targets the cities and region, and the specific focus is to provide, sorry, I think. I have some issues in controlling, okay. So the focus is to provide cities and regions with technical support and also to build the capacity to deliver clean energy transition plans or strategies with a 2030, 2050 horizon. So it's something that I think Covenant of Mayors signatories are familiar with. So to plan the sustainable energy future of their cities. The topic, very briefly, the proposals should ensure also coherence with the European and national frameworks, like the national energy and climate plans, the recovery and resilience plans, the long-term renovation strategies, or the renovation wave. So the local initiative strategies and plans are aligned with what requested at the European and national levels. And another very important element is to make what we call the integrated energy planning. So energy planning which has a cross-sector approach in it. It needs to be made part of the institutional process of the local and regional authorities. So it should become institutional. Another very critical element is to develop the governance structures and to secure the resources to implement the change, because as you might know, the best plan is not very useful if it remains on the shelf, if it doesn't have a structure and if that doesn't have the resources to implement it. And of course, this is also linked with the political commitment, which should be demonstrated, and to the engagement of the stakeholders, which can support the development and implementation of the plan. So the idea here is to focus on innovative processes, as you can see, but also on geographical area, which, despite their significant level of ambition, are still not yet fully engaged in the transition, because maybe are lagging behind or there are other issues. But the level of ambition needs to be demonstrated. The project size, you see, it's around 1.75 million euros, not prescriptive, as in all the topics we will describe. So an example from an ongoing Horizon 2020 project, which is called CITRA 50. As you can see, they developed some very relevant activities because they wanted to improve competencies of regions and local authorities in integrated energy and climate policy planning. They also studied how to improve the multi-level governance, so the coherence between the different governance levels, and they work on the development and financing. So you also see here that there is a focus on how to finance the sustainable energy and climate action plans and other policy action plans for carbon neutrality at 2050. They did that in more than 100 municipalities in 11 regions in 11 countries. And they also summarized their findings in a guidebook for achieving carbon neutrality by 2050, which is available in the website in English and in other 10 languages. So if we move on to this, to the next topic, which is the multi-level climate and energy dialogue to deliver the energy governance. So here, the focus is really to support member states in fostering a multi-level dialogue to deliver the energy governance. And why that? Because a first analysis of the national energy and climate plans submitted by the member states to the European Commission shows that the communication among the different administrative levels, which is required by the so-called governance regulation, is still not suitable, basically, to achieve 2030 and 2050 targets. So the idea with this topic is to support the creation of this dialogue, to support the coordination of the different governance layers, so both vertically, which means from local to regional to national levels, or horizontally, so on the same level, let's say, between local authorities, for instance. Why? In view of the update of the national energy and climate plans and for their monitoring and reporting. So the proposal should explain how they want to establish a permanent dialogue and create structural synergies between the different governance levels, but also between other stakeholders like the civil society, communities, we discussed about them, academia, industry and businesses, etc., and also different tools that could be useful to foster this work. The idea is to deliver best practices in form of governance models or models for improving processes to allow for robust and consistent reporting mechanism, and also to make links to other ongoing initiatives and other dialogue platforms which might already exist. Again, the estimated project size is 1.75 million euros. And being a new topic, I don't have an example for you, but I just listed in the slide the expected impact, so you have maybe a clear indication of what you should deliver with your proposals. So these governance structures or dialogue platforms, new governance models, which are used for improving the reporting mechanism for the national energy and climate plans. You should demonstrate a number, of course, of institutionalized collaboration of the energy transition, updated NECPs, involvement and engagement of different stakeholders, and of course, the horizontal indicators, so the indicators, the impacts which are horizontal to the goal, which are energy savings, renewable energy generation, and investment in sustainable energy. Then we move very quickly to the successor of the well-known project development assistant topic, which is called disruptive PDA. So it's basically is again a topic which provides support to build the expertise needed for the development of pipelines of energy projects. So here the proposals should be focused on and should be focused on the pre-investment phase, and they should ask for support to develop all the expertise and skills on the technical, economic, and legal level needed to develop project pipelines. That, of course, includes the development of organizational innovation to, for instance, minimize transaction costs, to analyze and hopefully remove the legal, administrative, and other market barriers, to understand how to aggregate, so to pool, to bundle together smaller projects to reach a critical size, which could be more easily financed, and also ensure replicability, so in a way that the processes developed could be replicated in other contexts. And of course, they have to develop innovative approaches to mobilize private finance. Very important here, the leverage ratio, because you basically have to launch investments before the end of the action, which are 15 or 10 times more the funding that you receive. So basically, for every million of EU support, you should trigger at least 15 million euros of investment in sustainable energy, which has to be launched before the end of the action. The leverage factor is 10 for projects working on investment in residential buildings. Here, the project size is between 0.5 and 1.5 million. I will go very quickly because I see the time. So this is an example of a PDA which was completed in Latvia. So they focus on the renovation of multifamily buildings through energy performance contracting. And as you can see, they triggered 5.3 million of energy investment. So also not massive investments could be approached and studied with the PDA. And if we talk about renovation of residential buildings, then there is a topic which is specifically focused on that, and it's called integrated home renovation services. So here the need is really to create or replicate integrated home renovation services. Why? Because, I mean, if you ever be involved in the renovation of your home, you can understand how challenging and complex that process could be. So there is a really need, because renovation of residential buildings is critical to reach the ambitious targets in energy and climate. There is a really need to reduce the complexity and simplify the decision for homeowners. There is a need to create, coordinate, and optimize the different services which are required, because the services are different and various, to connect all the different actors in the value chain, and to streamline the access to support measures. So sometimes support measures exist, but the access to them is not straightforward to homeowners. And of course, this is also connected to the improvement of the awareness and the trust towards these services which are offered to citizens. Here we have an example from a project in Vienna, coordinated by the city of Vienna. So you see that a city is very well placed to coordinate this kind of projects. But of course, there are also public and private partners. So they are developing a one-stop shop for private homeowners and building managers. They want to develop a comprehensive participatory process involving all the key actors, and they are developing and testing so-called renovation packages. So I concluded this very, very quick helicopter view on the some selected topics which could be interesting for you. And now, just to go to the end of the presentation, where to start. So basically, there are 7 tips to succeed. Now you don't see them. I don't know why, but you only see the title. Okay. Okay. Well, we will provide you with a presentation with the tips in the slide. But anyway, I can present you the tips. So basically, you have to start quite early. It's better to start now. Okay, it's better to start now, because you see the different deadlines for the climate mitigation and adaptation, and for the clean energy transition. So, I mean, there is still time, maybe a bit less for the climate mitigation and adaptation, but it's better to start if you're interested. Second, you have to read all the relevant information, because there's a lot of information available, starting from the call for proposal, of course, the official text, the the various criteria, so the countries which could participate, the eligibility and admissibility criteria, the evaluation criteria, and the evaluation process, how your proposal will be scored by experts. That's very important to understand the evaluation process to better prepare and draft your proposal. There's a lot of information available in form of frequently asked questions. There's the LIFE database to be inspired from many successful projects funded in the past. We reminded you about the LIFE info days. Basically, you have the recordings and the presentation for going into the details of the different topics. There are information portals like Build Up, Manage Energy. There's the CINEA newsletter, and so a lot of information that you have to study to apply successfully. And then if we go on, you should of course have a clear objective of what you have to do. You have to know the state of the art. So what has been done before? What is the state of the art? What are your potential target groups? Which could be your partners? And then very importantly, you need to have an idea of the impacts you want to achieve. So the impacts you want to achieve and the results you want to deliver, but also how to replicate your action, how your action can be replicated. Then you have to build, of course, a good team, a good consortium, unless, and if it's possible, because it's provided by the core text, you apply as a single applicant. But here you don't have, I mean, we always suggest the applicants not to artificially cover the European map. But you have to select partners because they are relevant to what you want to propose, because they have the right skills, and it's better to involve them in the preparation of the proposal. So not last minute, but start with them to devise and think about your proposal. You have, of course, to create a budget. So here the best practice is to start with what you want to do with your tasks, to estimate the effort needed for that, and then to translate the effort into euros. Don't go the other way around. So start from the estimated project size in the call text and then share with the consortium. That's not usually the good way to do it, and I can assure you that the experts will immediately recognize if a budget is not created in the right way. And then, of course, you have to write your proposal. So you have to fine-tune all these elements together. You have to double-check your target groups, the potential to deliver, the communication and dissemination objectives. And of course, you also have to follow the forms and templates which are provided to you to submit your proposal, and stick to the page limit, because you also need to be able to summarize your ideas and your proposal in a page limit. And to conclude, basically, it's better at the end to check the completeness, the consistencies between the activities and the budget, but also very important and very useful to basically ask someone who was not involved in the development of the proposal to have a critical reading and also maybe a language check. You can submit proposal in every language. I mean, but I mean, usually proposals are submitted in English, and so an English check could be useful. So then I will really quick go to the end, because we basically discussed all these elements. So there's a lot of sources to get information. There's our website, CINEA website, the YouTube channel, and the LIFE project database. We discussed about that. You can subscribe to our newsletter. Here, there's the Clean Energy newsletter. There's also a LIFE newsletter, if I not mistaken. Basically, here you will get updates on the clean energy transition. On the clean energy transition, you can subscribe. You will have the link in the presentation, and of course you can keep in touch or encourage, and very welcome to keep in touch with us with other channels, our website, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube channel. And I just have to conclude and thank you. Also from big thanks also from my colleagues Dalia and Laura, and we are happy to hear your questions now. Thanks.
Thank you very much for this crucial information for our participants. We will now go to Ms. Marta Rosia from Malta, that will present some key aspects of the Life Metro Adapt project, and then we will continue with the questions and answers session. You can find the instructions on how to access the Slido page and ask your questions in the chat box. We already have some questions there, so you can already even upvote some questions. But yes, now I see that the presentation started. So Marta, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, I confirmed it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you very much, Angela, for organizing this important space of exchange, and also for inviting the Life Metro Adapt project to share the experience. So I will try to be as short as possible to summarize the most important aspects of the project. So first of all, well, my name is Marta Rosi, and I work as project manager for the European Association for Local Democracy. And today I'm here on behalf of the Metropolitan City of Milan to present the main aspects of the Life Metro Adapt project, which is a project co-funded, of course, by the LIFE program of the European Union under the sub-program Climate Action and the priority area Climate Change Adaptation. The project is about to end. It started in September 2018, and it will end in this current month. As you can see from this slide, the territory of interest of the project is the Milan metropolitan area, and it is of course coordinated by the Metropolitan City of Milan in collaboration with 5 partners, both at the local and national level and at the international level. So the Metro Adapt project tackles climate change adaptation process from giving priority to 2 important issues related to climate change adaptation in urban areas, which are the phenomenon of the urban heat islands effect, which is very serious, especially in really urbanized areas where the soil consumption is very important, and the extreme weather conditions with a specific focus on flood risk. And it does that by aiming at creating a shared governance where the role of the metropolitan city is strategic. And one of the most important aspects of the project is that it started with an important question. So which is the role of an institution which collects 135 municipalities as the Metropolitan City of Milan to enhance the climate change adaptation processes which are and can be efficient at the territorial level. So the Metro Adapt project started from the collection and the analysis of important data which are related to these 2 important phenomena at the territorial level, and started from the analysis of this data. It used this data to produce effective climate change adaptation strategies and measures that can be implemented at the territorial and municipal level under the coordination of the Metropolitan City of Milan. And within these policies, the project encouraged the adoption and implementation of nature-based solutions to reduce the urban heat island effect and the risk of flood at the municipal level. Of course, then I cannot go through all the methodology, but there is an important part related also to the promotion of bottom-up initiatives, to citizens' engagement, and also to the creation of an international network to exchange good practices and enhance the applicability of the project. But I would like to focus on the important process of data analysis that led to the creation of an open source MetroAdapt platform, where municipalities can access to important data related to the territorial vulnerability, and can access to risk maps in which they can really consult and have access to real data about which are the vulnerabilities of their territory. And this data can be used to produce and elaborate efficient climate change adaptation strategies. And another important aspect, well, this is an example of how you can see the MetroAdapt platform and the risk maps that every municipality of the area can have access to, and using this information for the elaboration of important strategies and measures. And of course, the Metropolitan City of Milan within the MetroAdapt project has realized a training and also guidelines in order to share this important information and to make this information useful and possible to really use. And then another important aspect of the project is that this data and this information that has been collected and also made available to the municipalities has also been used and included in the most important strategic and territorial planning tools used by the Metropolitan City of Milan, which is the Metropolitan Territorial Plan. So these data have been used to realize and elaborate climate change adaptation strategies and to give directions and guidelines to the municipalities to really reduce the risk of floods and the urban heat island effects in their territory. So the Metropolitan City of Milan has elaborated some indicators and some guidelines that now can be used by the municipalities of the territory. So it has been an important process of data collection and elaboration and analysis, and also most importantly of implementation and use of this data to elaborate effective strategies that can be sustainable in the long period. Due to time restrictions, I cannot go through in details, and I cannot share with you all the climate change adaptation strategy and the live MetroAdapt methodology that has been implemented in the project. But I take this opportunity to invite you to one of the events that we are organizing within the All for Climate initiatives as part of the final conference of the project. This participatory workshop will take place on the 21st of September, and we will create a space of dialogue with all the involved stakeholders to share this methodology, to collect inputs, and to collect good practices. So if you have questions, I am available also now, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Marta, very much for presenting the project. Now we can slowly move to the next point, and that is the questions and answers. We have 3 questions. I will quickly share my screen with questions. Here we are. Here for all the participants, you can also see the QR code, which you can use to access Slido, as well as the code to join the session. And we can start with those ones that we already have in the list. So the first one is what is the difference between climate action government capacity and climate transition projects? So who would like to take maybe this question?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. I can take it if you want, and then maybe Talia and Michele if they want to complement. Indeed, I mean, there are some similarities between the climate action governance, we call it topic, and the clean energy transition part. Also, there are some similarities with climate mitigation, for example, part of SAP program. What is the answer is that we give these from this year more opportunities for applicants to see whether their projects fit either with the climate change sub-program or either with the clean energy transition. The clean energy transition has more prescriptive in instructions. You have seen it. You need in some cases to provide specific elements, otherwise you will not be eligible. And that's also linked, of course, to the higher co-funding rate. Whereas for the climate mitigation and adaptation, we left it open as it has been always so far for LIFE, so more bottom-up approach. So you need to see whether your project fits the clean energy transition topics, the specific goals, or if it fits the governance and information, which is much more open. It depends. It depends really on the nature of the project. So the idea this year is that you have more opportunities for your project, maybe to get funding either under climate or under clean energy transition. Talia or Michele, if you would like to jump in or.
Yes, just so another element, it's really in the title of the two different sub-programs. So the clean energy transition sub-program, of course, it's very much focused on energy, which means energy efficiency and renewable energy. So that's a very important element. And of course, the topics are more, let's say, top-down. So we identify challenges and for which we want to receive, let's say, innovative proposals. And of course, we also give you scopes and elements which should be included in your proposal, because we think they are important elements to basically to advance the development of energy policies, or to basically double check on the ground if the energy policies are working well or they need an improvement in their next, let's say, development, redevelopment.
Of course, I mean, I can also add an element which is the transnationality we have mentioned before for LIFE climate, so LIFE governance and information. You don't need to be a consortium. You can also come in, so propose as one entity, or you can develop a consortium. For clean energy transition, for most of the topic except 3, so all the topic except 3, you need to have an international consortium, at least 3 members from 3 different member states. So this is another difference.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The next question concerns the question of housing and renovation together. So the question is it possible to do a project offering cheap temporary housing in vulnerable districts in form of energy efficient tiny houses, or is it strictly on renovation?
So here, I guess that the question relates to the energy poverty topic that I presented earlier. And really the focus of this topic would be renovation. So temporary tiny houses could be part of your renovation roadmap if that's kind of a temporary solution to, to house building occupants while the renovation work is happening. There that would be possible, but it should not be the focus of your project. It should be just part of the roadmap, but I mean, the focus should always be the long-term renovation of buildings. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And final question that we have on Slido is about life in general and its upcoming objectives in future years as well. So to what extent will life priorities vary each year? For example, will there always be some annual focus on energy poverty and energy communities as broad topics?
So I guess that, I mean, the part, then perhaps colleagues can complete, but the part that is there for the 7 years is the intervention areas. So that part is what gives you an orientation of the kind of topics that will come up every year. The example that you give, so energy poverty and energy communities are central to the citizen-related intervention area. So I would expect that they are tackled in different angles, but that some of those, that those topics are tackled every year by one topic or another. But this will depend really on political priorities. So it's not guaranteed. It seems reasonable because they are so central to the intervention area.
And I can add on climate mitigation adaptation. It has always been very stable. So it's very possible that we will find similar priorities every year for this part. The point is that since we are more on a bottom-up approach, we give a very broad areas of work and we look for your solutions. So that's why these priorities, at least for this part of life, are more or less always the same throughout the years.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I hope that participants got the answers they were looking for. If not, you can follow up in the chat or on Slido. For now, I see only these three questions. So if anybody has some doubts still or comments, now is the time to share. If not, then I think we might finish ahead of time. So I want to thank our speakers. I want to thank Laura, Talia, and Michele from CINEA for joining us today, for sharing this important information with our participants, and Marta from Malta for presenting this very inspiring project. Also to all of you as participants for joining us and for asking your questions. So to wrap up, we will share as a follow-up, of course, the recordings and the slides. You will receive them as well as a feedback form that I will also quickly drop in the chat box, so you can already fill it out. It is very short. It will help us improve our webinars in the future. And yes, we do have one comment in the chat. Thank you, Maria. So you can reach out to her. I see that she's sharing her contacts. So yes, thank you all for coming and participating. And good luck to those ones who want to apply for a LIFE project. And we keep in touch. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. See you soon.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Bye.
You're welcome. Goodbye. Ciao, ciao. You too. Thank you.
Angela, maybe you can stop the recording. Otherwise, we can cut it later. There's no problem.
stop record.
Yes.